All right, we are live. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Oracle Land podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by Laquan and Kevin. How are you guys doing today?
Sup?
Living the dream. Living it hard.
And the dream is living you.
Oh,
Rock
twice,
hard.
Twice nightly.
So, keeping in the same format that we've been doing, we're going to break up these podcasts into about an hour long. So those that want to watch the entire thing, it's not too much of your day. And then we're going to break it into 3 smaller segments of roughly about 20 minutes each, so they can also be seen in sort of a bite-sized fashion. So for today, we're going to be covering recent events to start off with. And then after that, we're going to be talking about this journalism and what's the guy's name? Milo Yiannopoulos?
Yes.
Yeah, that guy. So we're going to talk a little bit about Milo and journalism. That'll be in our second segment. And then our third segment, we're going to switch it up a little bit, get into a little sciencey stuff today with the news of these new habitable, quote unquote, planets that are out there. So to begin with recent events, Kevin, you were saying that you've recently been reading some stories about what's going on. So what's going on?
So one of the things that actually just happened a little bit ago was the Democratic National Committee held their elections for chair. So that, this is kind of for those of you that were paying attention, this is fairly big deal because it's kind of like, given the ass kicking that Trump and the Republicans handed the Democrats this last election, what is this best path forward? Who's the leadership? Whose vision is gonna take the Democrats to victory? And really, in 2 years, where the midterms come, because they could actually pick up control of the Senate. The House is much harder, but it's possible. So they're the 2 kind of leading candidates. One was Tom Perez, who was Secretary of Labor, I believe, under Obama. The other is Keith Ellison, who is a representative in the House from where was it, Minnesota? So Tom Perez is kind of your Hillary Clinton establishment Democrat, where he is, he was for the Trans-Pacific Partnership the whole time. Granted, it's hard to hang that one on him because Obama was his boss at the time and Obama was for it, but he actually went out there and tried to make that happen. He gave some sweetheart deals, it sounds like, as tax deals, whatever, to lots of businesses, but the Clintons as well during his time. And then you got Keith Ellison, who's House of Representatives. I believe he's Muslim, but he's much more your Bernie kind of, shake things up, populist kind of thing, right? So Tom Perez won the election. It took a couple of rounds of ballots, but he won 235 votes to 200. His first act, right? So the establishment man won. His first act as chair was to appoint Keith Ellison as a, I forget the actual term, but essentially as a vice chair, or he gave him a seat of honor at the table, saying, hey, we want to make sure that you guys are included as well. And I think that's a survival technique for them, because there is a lot of pressure right now coming from the progressive left, or as a lot of people call them, the left's Tea Party, that are the ones out there that really kind of stirring stuff up. So there's a lot of pressure from them to say, hey, Clinton screwed up royally. We cannot follow her playbook. We have to get back to the people. You guys have to stop representing business and start representing us. So it's interesting to see. People are already pissed off. The left, the progressive left, progressive Tea Party kind of folks are already really pissed about this, because they look at it like a slap in the face. So we were talking before, and we were talking about, they're saying, hey, Bernie, start your own party. That conversation may heat up now that they've officially snubbed the more progressive of the 2 options.
Well, like you were saying, though, I feel like they're bringing that in because if you have a second in command, essentially, who represents that more progressive voice, It's just part of the tactic that maybe it's just this point in time that we have to see it, but if we're going to have a strong third party, how can you possibly stand up to a Democrat or a Republican? I mean, the closest we have is the Green Party, and that's still marginal.
So Donald Trump could have done it, right? I've been saying for a while, we need someone who has a fuck ton of money and is already kind of popular to run for office, because they don't have to be beholden to anyone. Donald Trump was that. He didn't have to be a Republican. It helped, but he certainly could have, had he, I don't think he would have been successful as a third party, but he definitely would have made some noise, much more than Jill Stein or what's his name, governor Gary Johnson. Yeah.
But how many people are out there that's like that? I mean, I know he ran an independent, right? I believe Ross Perot. I mean, he had money. Of course, he didn't have the steam behind him like Trump did. But there's not going to be too many people that comes along. Like, Trump is really an anomaly. Like, we're not going to find too many people that come in with that head of steam. Barack, yeah, he built it. But Trump already had it established because of his previous media career and stuff like that. So, and he was just a magnet, for an audience, so I just don't see that somebody's gonna come through and have that. We've had people who ran with crap tons of money, and we all know money to a certain extent. You have to have money and you have to have clout. Trump just happened to have both. That's why it worked. Everybody's had money before, but he had something everybody else didn't. He had that appeal, that rock star appeal. I hate to even say that about him, but he did, He did.
Yeah. Dude, even in California, though, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
He became governor because people knew who he was. And keep in mind, California has, if I'm not mistaken, the first or second largest immigration population. So we have a lot of people that are coming to our country, and they recognize him. So I think like you're saying, that money can only get you so far. And I think Ross Perot is a great example of that. I actually like Ross Perot. He was just that funny little, what was he from, like Texas or something? And just spitting off his mouth. And, a guy had billions of dollars and actually made sense on a lot of things. But it's interesting, like you're saying, because he had a lot of the same talking points that Trump used. Trump just obviously added this whole other angle of let's get people riled up and in fear, and then we'll just go after him. Because he's pushing his agenda, man. They are being forceful now, and it's like, okay, here we go.
So Trump's response, he shocker, tweeted, congratulations to Thomas Perez, who's just been named chairman of the DNC. I could not be happier for him or for the Republican Party. So he's counting it as a victory for him. He's counting 2 years down the road, to say he's going to keep his Senate and his House the way that they are now, or pick up seats. And, really it depends, the Tom Perez tweeted him back because, adults, right? He said, call me Tom, and don't get too happy. Keith Ellison and I, Democrats united across the country, will be your worst nightmare.
Oh my God.
That's a lie. What's funny about Trump's communication style, in the beginning, I still am, I'm totally against all this damn social media usage that he has. Like, he just won't really get out there and really answer questions. He's afraid of confrontation because he's been exposed a couple times. People will stand up in the media and call him out, and he can't answer any question. But then I really kind of sat back and thought about it. I was like, how great is his communication, though, if you think about it? Because every tweet garners discussion, whether it's good or bad. Like, he's getting people talking, and he's pushing his agenda one way or another through tweet with 140 characters.
Dude, what I think is interesting about it, and this ties into also what happened this last week, they blocked out major networks. I think it was an informal press conference, so I think they had a little bit more leeway. Like, you can't block them out of everything. But it definitely set a precedent that they are going to push back, and they're going to push back hard. So any kind of news at this point can be completely manipulated. Not that it already hasn't been.
So one of the funny things, you talk about news being manipulated. So there's the software where they can essentially map your face, and they can map a third party. And so you can say words and whatever, and the computer does a computer generated image. So let's say I could put on Putin's head and talk as Putin.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. So they're saying like once that actually gets out there, like because they said it's right there, but once that gets out there, who's to like the fake news thing is going to go nuts. It's like, no, I literally saw him say, I don't like, Mexicans. And you're like, no. Seriously, that was a fake video. You're like, but it was him. It was him. And
see, this is what worries me, though, and this is where you will see a breakdown and a civil war take place or martial law or something. When you have that kind of breakdown in trust where you won't know what to believe. I mean, people right now are starting to question what they believe. We're starting to get to the point where people just won't believe anybody but their mother and their father. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even they're suspect. No, I just saw another news article that was a reporter that went through airport. Like I went through airport security. I did all the stuff. I took off my shoes, blah, blah, blah. I got to the ticket gate. I showed my ID or my passport. I showed my ticket. I was getting onto the plane and they actually stopped and did a retina scan on everyone. And it was like, I don't know if this has been done before. I couldn't find any reference to it, but it happened, to this person and on the plane. They actually did, maybe there was a credible threat there. Hey, we think a terrorist is on that plane, so we gotta try. But at least from the account that I read, there was no explanation. It was just, hey, step up, look at the green light, and move on.
Wow, that's really all I can say on that. Am I surprised? Of course not. But wow, nevertheless.
Yeah. Well, and asking people to prove their ID on domestic flights. There's reports coming out where immigration officials have said, "Hey, everyone, put papers." They probably say, "Hey, we need your ID," but it's the essentials. It's essentially saying, "Papers, please."
Well, aren't they banning certain state IDs? Like you can't use certain state IDs or something like that to identify yourself. I think it was something like that. Maybe I'm just speaking out of my butt, but I'm pretty sure I read something like that.
Yeah. So what they did, there's an overhaul to driver's licenses called the Real ID thing. Essentially, you have to go through. There's more things added to it from the federal standpoint that makes it more of a robust ID, more, I guess, invasive to the person. You have to prove yourself more fully. But yeah, so Arizona is one of the states that was like, we ain't doing that. You can't tell us. And so I think the feds were like, okay, fine, but you guys are gonna have to use passports to go to a government building or to fly any airport, any airplane, anywhere, domestic, whatever. And so basically Arizona's like, fine, we'll make it voluntary. But yeah, there's a federal ID that's kind of coming out, and you have some states pushing back at it that they essentially want to get everyone on the same level as far as identification rigor, I guess.
You know what concerns me about that is like what we're seeing right now that happened at the Dakota Access Pipeline, where protesters have now been forcefully removed. They've been arrested and they've been just completely cleared of the area, right? Is it the entire area now has been cleared?
Yeah, they're gone.
So basically what we have seen is that even if, if it affects you, if somebody wants to build a pipeline or build something that's going to be near your house, they're going to start digging up the ground that could possibly bust up your water or can take or have contamination or whatever. We're now seeing that police state is now removing anybody, you could be domestic or not, and they will basically further their agenda in a way that, as a public, as people who live in this land, we don't have that say anymore. So it's really ironic to me that especially the right has been complaining about government and government force for so long and how they don't want anybody coming to take their guns and they don't want anybody telling them what to do and all this. But now what we're actually seeing is that that's exactly what is being flexed right now. It's like the government has never really flexed their muscle. Like, under Obama, I think even under W, especially after 9/11, we were very much like, we didn't want to really attack one another because we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah,
but I've never seen it like it is now, where we're flexing that muscle.
The Patriot Act is pretty big.
But that's not a muscle, though. That's a big eye. I don't really see that as a muscle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so SB 1142 from the Arizona Senate is a good example of what you're talking about, which is essentially they're tying expanding the definition of racketeering to include protests where something's damaged. So the way it's written, and it passed the Arizona Senate 17-13 with one Democrat voting in favor. So I'm sure I think it's Kathleen Hernandez, I think, out of Phoenix. But yeah. So there's this protest law. Essentially what they're doing is they can do the civil asset forfeiture. They can just take your stuff and charge you with racketeering. If you are at let's say, Eric, you're standing on the street watching a protest go down, and Laquan over there is just, breaking stuff and setting things on fire. They can actually arrest both of you for that violence and charge you both with racketeering because the protest turned violent, even though you were just standing there.
Misery loves company. Let's go, Eric.
So, well, here's a couple concerns I have with that. One is that basically what that means now is that the police can almost be nitpicky and anything could be interpreted as violence, and they can shut down an entire protest. And if anybody is doing anything violent in any way, shape, or form, like you're saying, even associatively, if you're close near. What concerns me about that, though, is that if we have a police state that now will enforce something like that, where any sign of violence, they could shut it down, does that mean that we're going to see more moles and people planted in those crowds? Because as soon as one person acts violent, they can shut the whole thing down.
Of course.
So,
of course you will.
This is just, oh, God damn it. This is just what I mean, though. Like, this is the breakdown of civilization. This is how we go about that.
Here's the good news is so people are pissed, right? Already. Like, this has only been out for a few days and people are fucking livid. So it still has to go to the House, the Arizona State House, which is just as crazy, if not crazier, than the Arizona Senate as far as this stuff goes. And then it still needs to be signed by Governor Ducey, who I call Diet Trump, because he's basically he's the mini me for Trump. But
for those that don't know, Governor Ducey is the governor of Arizona.
You said his name wrong. It's Ducey.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, don't let it happen again. So there are still 2 stops before this would actually become law. The House could say, "Hey, no, we're not really with it," or only those who were directly witnessed destroying things, because right now it's open. So they could clarify it and say, hey, we are going to go after people that were caught doing it, and then the governor could veto it, obviously. But then the final check is going to be, it's obviously an infringement on First Amendment right to assemble, so it'll be thrown out in court the first time it's challenged due to First Amendment issue. And can you guys hear the ice cream man coming down my street?
Bringing back those memories.
Oh yeah. There they go. So I mean, chances are it'll get thrown out in court, cost Arizona a couple $1 million in legal fees. Just like SB 1070, they get these really terrible ideas, they push them through, and then they get thrown out in court. So
I guess we'll see what happens with that. So I was just coming across another headline, and apparently this just came out. Agency plans to award Mexico border wall contracts by April. So basically, it looks like we're going to start taking taxpayer money, and we're going to start building this wall. They're going to start giving out contracts.
But Mr. Trump said that Mexico was going to pay for it, Eric. How come we have to pay for it?
Fucking idiots. You know what? Can I just point out another idiotic concept about all this? Here's what I see happening. So first of all, to even get this wall up and going, this is going to take like decades to complete this thing. It's going to take a really long time from start to finish. By the time they start to dig in and start taking millions, if not billions of dollars to invest it to actually get the physical structure underway, in 2 years, if the Democrats take back Congress, or in 4 years they take it back, it's going to stop that project dead in its tracks, which means that will literally be dead money sitting in the middle of the goddamn desert.
Yep.
That's what pisses me off about this. It's destined to be a waste.
Conan O'Brien, I guess, went down to Mexico and was taking up collections for the wall.
I think at this point it's a power play. It's a pride, and it's like it's in a sense it's whose ball. I want to really kind of impose my will. So I think even Trump knows this. His administration knows that this will be stopped in 2 to 4 years. But it's the point that he said he was going to do it, and I'm doing it. That's really what it comes down to. It's like, no, I told you I'm gonna do this wall. Now whether it gets stopped or not, he's like, I give a damn. But I told you I was doing it, and I did it. He doesn't care about the end game, and it's going to be dead money. It's that simple.
That's a lot of taxpayer money. That's why, like, honestly, he's going to hang himself because a lot of those people that voted for him, it's like what we're seeing now in the town halls. I was just reading that another Republican, I don't know if it was Mitch McConnell or somebody else, but they were at a town hall meeting and their Republican constituency was starting to raise voices and getting pissed off because their Affordable Care Act is going to be taken away from them.
Well, did you see what they're doing now? There's a lot of Republicans now when they go to the town hall meetings. You're not allowed to bring cell phones inside. You're not allowed to protest. Like they actually have like a list out there, and so it tells you what you are not able to do when you come in there. So like going forward, you won't see that stuff anymore because they've already learned it. Like, nah, if you coming in here, you're not recording this, and you can't, create like a disturbance or anything like that. So they're really trying to control, their town hall meetings, and pretty much they're like, no, you come in here, you be sheep. I'm the wolf, you be the sheep, and you can ask sheep-like questions, but you will not say anything that's going to agitate me as the wolf, so.
Yeah, and Gabby Giffords, who was the Democratic representative in Congress from Tucson, that got shot in the head. But
her husband is one of the astronauts that went up into space.
Yeah, he's one of the twinsies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she was like, "Hey, you guys, have some courage. Get out there and actually face your constituents." You're like, the girl that got shot in the head talking to her people on the street corner is telling you to sack up and get out there. You better do it.
But they're not used to it though, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize that a lot of these representatives are not used to talking to their constituents like that. They do planned engagements, little smile, camera, pictures and stuff, but actually sitting there holding a town hall meeting and actually listening to grievances, you can tell a lot of them are uncomfortable with this, because when these questions are coming at them, their answers are talking points. Like, and their people know, like, no, that's a talking point. Give me an answer, and they can't. So I don't know.
No, that's exactly right, man. I mean, it's like church. It's the same format. It's the same format. You're going to dress in your, proper business attire. We're going to hold a meeting. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing for you. But now that they're actually getting pushback, they're not used to that.
And they don't like it.
Well, it's going to get interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So